Taxation in Nigeria has been a long-standing issue in the country. It is not very well regulated and has many flaws. As is present in many issues in the country, corruption is a very large driving force. With bribes to elected officials and a weak business law model, it is very hard for foreigners or local citizens to invest in Nigerian businesses. This has resulted in a large amount of people living in poverty. In addition, many officials have ignored their own farmers in favor of importing foreign crops. With the government ending fuel subsidies, fuel prices have doubled, only adding to this poverty problem. All of these problems and the prebendalist structure of Nigeria gives the wealthy an unfair advantage over the average citizens. When protests erupted over these issues in Lagos, now former President Goodluck Jonathan used the police and military to stop the protesters, killing many in the process. HIV and AIDS has spread throughout Nigeria and the entirety of Africa, with Nigeria having the second largest population living with AIDS and HIV. Up to 3.2 million people are affected. This has become a large issue in recent times. The large amounts of HIV and AIDS cases in Nigeria and throughout Africa are due to three main reasons: human trafficking and prostitution, an uneducated populace, and ignorance over people's HIV statuses. Human trafficking of women and children has allowed AIDS and the HIV virus to spread very quickly throughout Africa, and because prostitutes aren't normally tested for sexually transmitted diseases, this only adds to the problem. Also adding to the problem is education about the HIV virus being very rare in schools. Only about 23% of schools in Nigeria provide education about HIV and AIDS, and the education about the virus isn't exactly proper. That uneducated populace becomes ignorant to the issue at hand. At this point, the virus can take advantage of this ignorance and spread like wildfire. It's not all bad, however. Many campaigns have begun throughout Africa and Nigeria. UNAIDS, for example, has made many contributions to the fight against AIDS in Nigeria. The LGBT community in Nigeria, for a long time, has been caught between a rock and a hard place. Both the north and south regions of Nigeria regard homosexuality as a sin in some fashion. Since 1901, it has been illegal for people of the same gender to engage in any sort of intimate activity with each other. Any other activity that goes against the quote-unquote order of nature has also been forbidden. This may include cross-dressing or harboring homosexual citizens that have been convicted of a crime. This has been laid out in the constitution of each of the 37 states of Nigeria. The punishment for homosexual activities may range anywhere from fines to jail time and even death by stoning in some cases. Punishments for different crimes vary from state to state. However, each state has the same general viewpoint on homosexual tendencies and relationships. Violence against LGBT citizens is also widespread across the country, with many churches or organizations advocating homosexual relationships.
Is there much help for citizens living with AIDS or HIV in Nigeria, such as medicines or campaigns?
Yes, I would say so. I don't know if it's appropriate to discuss. How old are you?
We're 15, or 15, 16?
15.
Oh
Yeah,
my
everyone.
God! How are you doing this anyway? Okay. um, um, Here in this country, people are told preventive ways of doing this and doing that. Back there, they capped it into, they wove it into, some kind of music and tell people what you can do, and it would decrease your chance of, getting aid. And there are some in the north, like the Muslims, that do not believe in some of these things. So that's one part of trying to help the citizens realize the importance of prevention in the first place. The other one was trying to get people who had already contacted it to take their medication religiously. And
Okay. Are there many support groups for homosexual citizens in Nigeria?
I can tell you seriously, that's a word that you don't want to say in the open in Nigeria.
Yeah.
Homosexuality is a taboo. Until I came to America, that's a thing that I never heard except if I read through it in the books. And but there are homosexuals in Nigeria, but it's a thing that you cannot admit openly. Yeah, and up till now, Nigerian Council of Christian Association broke rank with British Anglican uh, clergy because Britain, because of their civilization and like America, ha- have opened up
Their doors too.
their to homosexuality and also for um, that, those who have openly admitted that they're homosexuals to serve as clergymen. Because of that, a lot of churches, including Nigerian Anglican system, cut rank
They
with them,
cut their ties, yeah.
cut ties with them. They said, I'm sorry to say that there is no sympathy for that in my country,
Yeah.
Nigeria.
Are there taxes for things in Nigeria that would otherwise be untaxed in the United States? I guess like unnecessary taxes. I don't know.
No, we don't have too much taxes in Nigeria. Um, uh, I would wish we have the taxing system in America has. They came to find out that that money that they were getting, generating from taxing people, wasn't going back to the government. It was going into the pockets of those guys who were getting it. So they will print their own tickets, and they will think they're giving you tickets for government. They were just filling their pockets. Eventually, those girls' gates were turned down, and there are
It's
no,
done with,
yeah, they're done with. So you don't have taxation. Fuel, for instance. Fuel is the only way I can tell you they're getting some taxes, but it's woven into the prices of the fuel, but it's still much cheaper than Americans are paying.
Okay. Nigeria has a population of 120 million people. And of that, guess how many are students? 30 million. Their federal government believes that education is a key factor in affecting national development. Education in Nigeria consists of 3 levels: primary school, secondary school, and tertiary education. Oh my god, I love saying that word. Okay. The main language in all of the 3 schools are English. Primary education begins at age 6. Students remain there for the next 6 years and then they leave with a little certificate. Primary school is free, and some subjects that are taught are, of course, the core classes: mathematics, science, and English, and one of the 3 main languages: Hausa, Yoruba, or Igbo. If you are rich enough to go to private school, you would be offered computer science, French, and art. Before 2006, all students are required to take a common entrance exam before you could be admitted into secondary school, which was run by the state, unlike locally run private schools. As of now, students automatically go to secondary school without an entrance exam. These kids are blessed now because previously the test would determine whether their education would continue on or if it would stop right there. Secondary school is a total of 6 years. At the end of the 3rd year, students take a JSS3, which is a junior secondary school exam, in order to make it to senior secondary school. In the 2nd year of senior secondary school, kids have the option to take a GCEO level exam in order to prepare for the senior year exams. There's a lack of seats and poor government funding, so 1/3 of students continue to the second half of secondary school. In the tertiary level, there are 117 universities in total of Nigeria, 36 federal, 36 states, and 45 private universities. The National Universities Commission oversees all these schools. To get in, you need to take a unified tertiary matriculation exam. You need to score at least a 200 or above to get accepted into these schools. It is 200 out of 400. And that's not even the main problem. Remember that not enough seats problem that I mentioned in secondary school? Yeah, that problem is in tertiary level too. So that determines whether you get rejected or not. They reject many students because of this seating problem. Many people get rejected because of this, and it's either you're the best of the best or you hope that a miracle comes your way. As in many other countries, Nigeria also struggles with sex inequalities. Men are still granted more educational opportunities in some cases. Underdeveloped rural areas receive lower education standards than school in urban areas. Nigeria currently ranks 145 out of 181 in U.S. Education Index. ECOWAS is the Economic Community of West African States. It was established by the Treaty of Lagos, signed on May 28, 1975. The countries that make up ECOWAS are Benin, Burkina Faso, Cote d'Ivoire, Gambia, Ghana, Guinea, Guinea-Bissau, Liberia, Mali, Nigeria, Senegal, Sierra Leone, Togo, and Cape Verde. The objective of ECOWAS is to promote cooperation, to bring a sense of economic unity, and to raise the living standards of its people. Of all the countries, Nigeria makes up 50% of ECOWAS population, so you see why this is a very problematic area. Nigeria's GDP has been one to watch due to its constant change and movement. Just last year, Nigeria expanded about 5.94% in the fourth quarter over its previous year around the same time. The gross domestic product in Nigeria was worth $522.64 billion in 2013. In the past 10 years, Nigeria's growth rate averaged 6.13%. It reached an all-time high of 8.60% in the fourth quarter of 2010 and a record low of 3.46% in the first quarter of 2012. Nigeria's HDI, or Human Development Index, was at an unfavorable position in 2005 at a ranking of 158, which was the second lowest rank at the time. As of 2012, the ranking was placed at 153, which is somewhat of an improvement, but it's still terrible at the same time. Nigeria is home to a rich diversity of forests and wildlife. 899 species of birds, 274 mammals, 154 reptiles, 53 amphibians, and 4,715 species of plants. Now you would think that in a country with so many beautiful creatures that they would protect them better. But unfortunately, Nigeria's forest is one of the most threatened on the planet due to the high population rates, industrial agriculture, and logging. Between 1990 and 2005, Nigeria lost 80% of their forest. This labeled them as having one of the highest deforestation rates on the whole planet at that time. That's completely crazy. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I like trees, so like talking about all this deforestation is it's just harsh, you know, it's tough. Nigeria's environment ranked 134 and was at the bottom 50 among all countries. Another factor adding to that poor score was constant spills in the Niger River. Over the past 50 years, as much as 546 million gallons have been spilled. Not only are those endless amount of money going down the drain, but also think about the sea creatures affected. Now, to be honest, the sad thing is, the animals aren't even the thing that's on their mind. It's all about the money these days. Now, the lack of government subsidies, as mentioned earlier, is responsible for the on and off electricity problem going on. Because of that, generators have become a new must-have to cope with that problem. Some problems that go along with generators is that they can be expensive. And even if you have the money, you need an educational background because if it's put in the wrong hands, bad things can go down, you know, fires and all that. Part of President Goodluck Jonathan's future campaign was, with very much emphasis on was, because as you all know, he took an L, he took a loss, you know, this year. Anywho, oh my God, going along with that, Goodluck was planning to improve the power grid, but corruption still remained on top. And let's not forget, he lost. So, yeah. And Buhari came back for the fourth time, ready to take it all, and he finally did. You guys, Buhari showed perseverance, and that you should never stop. So, ladies and gentlemen, take it from him. Never stop what you're doing and try hard. Yeah, fight hard for what you want. He didn't, so you shouldn't either. Thanks. Okay, that's it. Why do you think the economic community of West African states contributes very little to Nigeria as of now?
The West African countries, Nigeria is one of the richest countries in West Africa. I wouldn't see any of them wanting to contribute to Nigeria because it's like robbing Peter to pay Paul. Okay, and
do you think that in Nigeria men still have more educational opportunities and that inequalities between male and female still remain?
It's yes and no. Yes in the north, no in the south.
Today I'll be talking about how Boko Haram began and grew leading up to the present-day issues. Boko Haram is found mainly in northeastern Nigeria and dominated by the Sunni Islamic religion. The founder of Boko Haram was Muhammad Yusuf, a Muslim leader. The name of this group, Boko Haram, literally means Western education is forbidden. This Sunni Muslim group began in 2002 providing food and clothing to the poor. This group began to become more radical, though. As more Western ideas were becoming more popular through the spread of globalization, this made a bigger problem for the group. This terrorist organization held an uprising in 2009, which led to the death of Mohammed Yusuf in police custody, along with many others being put in jail. The Nigerian military believed that they'd have destroyed Boko Haram and declared victory over the terrorist group. They were mistaken. A charismatic speaker named Abubakar Shaku, a deputy leader to the group's founder, took over in 2010. An unexpected prison break shortly after the announcement of the new leader led to a resurgence. This terrorist group began with soft, easy targets like attacking Western schools in Nigeria, but they eventually became more sophisticated in their attacks and began bombing police stations and bombing the United Nations office. The most visible and well-known act of this terrorist group was in April 2014. 276 girls were kidnapped in Chikau. The reason this stuck out worldwide is because it got people's attention on a humanity level through the media. The story actually lasted over 2 months in Western media. Boko Haram's influence in northeastern Nigeria has continued to spread, and their goal of implementing Sharia law in Nigeria clearly has more secular modern people in the south very worried. Boko Haram threatens the national government of Nigeria and 2 weeks ago staged an attack killing 40 non-Muslims and cutting their heads off with chainsaws. The second topic I will cover today is to address Nigeria's healthcare system. I will discuss the problems associated with medical care in Nigeria, provide quantified and statistical analysis on Nigeria's healthcare system, and discuss their efforts to improve it. As the most populous and richest country in Africa, Nigeria has been unable to create an effective healthcare system. Historically, Nigeria has not made the smart investments they need to sustain or create an effective national healthcare system. For these reasons, Nigeria has experienced a brain drain or qualified doctors and medical experts. In Nigeria, from every 10,000 people, they only have 4 doctors. This problem has been made worse by the phony doctors and fake medicines. Vaccines and immunizations have not been provided to the population. Unlike our education system, they are not taught basic ways to stay healthy and learned about dangerous diseases. Dirty and contaminated water supplies only make the situation worse. What is the result? A life expectancy of 53 years for the average Nigerian. This is in part due to the large number of child deaths. 1 million kids under the age of 5 die every year from treatable diseases. The blood supply in the country is also not safe. The WHO lists their infant mortality rate, children that die during or shortly after. Childbirth at 88 to 1,000, or almost 9 out of every 100, which is among the lowest in the world. The top 5 causes of death are influenza, 2 HIV, 3 stroke, 4 coronary heart disease, 5 diarrhea diseases. Of these top 5, 3 are preventable, but continue to kill them by the millions. If you have money and you get sick in Nigeria, you go to India for modern and effective medical care. If you were to visit Nigeria, stay away from the tap water, ice, fruit/veggies washed in a contaminated water. And above all, wear long pants and shirts with bug spray to keep the mosquitoes away, as they spread malaria that is a very common and very dangerous disease. Nigeria's national healthcare system is organized in 3 levels. 1, national level. 2, the state. 3, local level. Currently, all 3 are undergoing changes. the national level is trying to attack investors to make investments in their healthcare system. Medical training is being implemented on a larger scale. Technologies are being introduced to medical facilities to bring them up to date. A national focus is being made on maternal and child care to focus the health care on the pregnant women and children. Incentives are also being provided to parents to ensure their kids get the proper vaccines and immunizations. To end on a positive note, Nigeria has an effective global medical partner to help control the recent Ebola outbreak, which demonstrates they can, with the right incentive, raise their medical game. The final topic in my discussion today is that of prebendalism in Nigeria. The term prebendalism is a term that refers to the patron-client relationship between political leaders and their close supporters, friends, family, ethnic tribe, etc., that helped get them in office. According to Richard Joseph from Northwestern University, who coined the term in 1996, state offices in Nigeria are regarded as prebends that can be appropriated by office holders and used to generate material and benefit for themselves and their constituents or kin groups. Thus, it is a way for officials to use government-collected money to support the interest and pay off those who support or supported them. This type of activity is usually called corruption and leads to investigations. In Nigeria, 31 of the 36 governors have been investigated for corruption. Since their independence in 1960 from Great Britain, Nigeria has been divided ethnically with 3 different groups competing for power and money. Each of the ethnic groups wants to take care of their own, and this leads to a greater ethnic division. The lack of regulations is enabled by the lack of independent judicial systems and investigate agency further the corruption problems. The rampant corruption takes money away from needed legitimate projects like improved immunizations for children, health education, schools, and infrastructure projects like improved electric power. Corruption undermines people's faith in government. They question the legitimacy of the government, and they don't buy into a national identity or national pride. They focus on their own financial situation by any means. The problem of prebendalism, combined with the crisis in healthcare and the rise of radical Islamic militants trying to create an Islamic government in Nigeria, all drag Nigeria down and provide the opportunity for new Nigerian leadership, which we just witnessed in the April 1st election.
We're going to talk about Boko Haram now. How did Boko Haram affect you when you were living in Nigeria? And if you follow the recent elections, how did it influence the outcome?
Okay, when I was living in Nigeria, there was no Boko Haram. There were other things, but not Boko Haram. There have always been opportunity for the northern elite, that's the Muslim elite, to influence their ill-educated, their ignorant masses, to use religions to incite trouble. They either called one thing or the other, but they had never been called Boko Haram. Boko Haram is a recent thing. Let me say it this way. The Muslims, the Arabs came from the north, the Westerners came from the south, from the sea. That's how we have mostly the Western educated people in the south. The Arabs educated Muslims in the north. So these guys could only send their children to get education, the rich northerners who are Muslims. And they undermined the rest of the guys by sending them to Arabic institution. If you could read Quran, if you could speak Arab and read Bible and read Quran, that's enough. So with that, they grow up not getting Western education, and they are easily manipulated they are told if you do this, you go to heaven. They can do it. They can be wired with bombs and go.
And they have no guidance, right?
No, because it's what the imam tells them to do that they do. In the south, you don't have that. I can tell you, I'm from the Igbo tribe. I do not know any one single Igbo man that you could tell to put bomb on himself and kill himself to go to heaven that will do it. None. Not one. Not one. They will tell you to try it. If you tell them to strap bomb on themselves and go to heaven, they will tell you, go there, I'll meet you when I
come. How is the medical care in Nigeria compared to the United States?
It's terrible. We don't have efficient medical system. When the economy was good, possibly immediately after the independence, the hospitals were there, running well. Corporations like Nigerian Coal Corporation had their hospital. There were general hospitals. Each state would try to create hospitals. But as things went on, the oil boom brought about a lot of money into the country, and the things that Nigeria was known for, which were agricultural products, minerals, and all the rest of them, dwindled. Neglect of hospitals, neglect of roads system, water distribution system. So the hospital system and the medical system is one of those sectors that the masses lack the most. And a lot of doctors started going out to the countries that will pay them the greatest amount of money. So if you are sick and you are brought to the hospital, you have to almost pay to see a doctor. You get prescribed a medication and you cannot get it in the hospital. Then you go to buy the medicine in the market, open market, or the pharmacies. They are adulterated medicine and they don't help any. So the health system is poor. You don't want to be sick in that country. That's what I can tell you.
How did corruption within the government change the voter turnout in this last election, in your opinion?
The government is massively corrupt. It's corrupt, but I can say it's more corrupt than every other system in the world, except that our own is, they do it to your front. To the outsiders, they might not know. They could tell you it's because of the weakness of the president and his inability to fight the Boko Haram. But Boko Haram was also originated by, they said, quote unquote, people who know better than me, was originated by the man who now won the election.
Oh. Okay. So the Bamako, if I'm saying that right, initiative in Nigeria, it was adopted in 1988 as a strategy to strengthen the PHC, the 5 goals. Increase community participation through local government, district and village committee, improve mother and child health services, and the provision of essential drugs, cost recovery, and enhanced monitoring, management, and supervision. By 1997, 10% of the Nigerian population had the Bamako Initiative. Problems arose due to the decentralization and the BI program. Supervisors did not show diligence in their duties. Profits from the sale of drugs were not shared with communities as intended. Misuse and mismanagement of resources resulted in the denial of services to the poorest. Decentralization, however, made committees more accountable and improved mobilization of resources. Some infrastructure was improved. Okay, the SAP and healthcare delivery in Nigeria. The outcome of the SAP is believed to have been less positive for healthcare delivery. Coe-Wenson, in his 1993 review of SAP, concluded SAP affected social institutions, including healthcare, in a negative manner. A study by the Nigerian Institute of Social and Economic Research determined SAP breeds mass poverty, declining living standards, and rising unemployment. Direct impact on health. Healthcare delivery affected by SAP through budget cuts and privatization. It reduced subsidies for healthcare service and health centers, forcing individuals to purchase health services from private sector. Budget cuts and restraints suspended health projects and construction of health centers and hospitals. Created a two-tier system for access to health services. The upper tier, access based on income, better services. Lower tier is patients dependent on national health services, where some charges put service out of reach. The indirect impact on health. The SAP contributes to poverty, reduced incomes and unemployment. Rising food costs heads to malnutrition. Malnutrition leads to less resistance to disease. Rise in HIV and AIDS in adult population, lack of infrastructure due to less government spending. The Bamako Initiative was launched in 1987 to meet the growing crisis of scarcity in drugs and reduce access to quality health care and to counter the negative impact of the SAP. The PHC, Primary Healthcare. 8 principles. 1. Improve PHC service for all. 2. Decentralize management of PHC service and district level. 3. Decentralize management and locally collected patient fees to community level. 4. Ensure consistent fees are charged at all levels of health service in hospitals and health centers. 5. High commitment from government to maintain and expand PHC services. 6. National policy on essential drugs should be complementary to PHC. 7. Ensure poorest have access to PHC. And finally, 8. Monitor clear objectives for creating health services. Thanks. Okay, so we're going to talk about MEND now. MEND is the movement for emancipation of the Niger Delta. Recently, the Niger Delta militants threatened a retaliation of Islamist attacks. The movement has been said to launch a terror campaign in defense of Christianity. The movement for the emancipation of the Niger Delta, MEND, the umbrella body of armed groups of Nigerian oil-rich Niger Delta, said it would launch a new terror campaign in defense of Christianity. The bombing of mosques, Hajj camps, Islamic institutions, large congregations, and Islamic events and associations of clerics that propagate doctrines of hate will form the core mission of this crusade. This was said by spokesman of MEND, Jomo Bomo. It appears to be responding to the ongoing attacks against churches and Christian populations in northern Nigeria. This has prompted concern in Nigeria, although there were questions about whether MEND had the capacity to launch widespread attacks. There is a likelihood that they are going to experience some kind of Christian retaliation. Some people, though, are not confident that MEND will be able to do this because it's not a single organization, but many different people. So the group now has been believed to compromise disgruntled militants. Ken Henshaw, from the Niger Delta-based group of Social Action, said, key characters from MEND have all accepted amnesty and handed in their arms. a series of attacks or threats against Muslims and Christians in Nigeria. In 2011, a group called Awa Akwa, which it claimed was the Christian equivalent of the name Boko Haram. In 2013, in January, there were attacks against Muslims in River State in the Niger Delta. There is some precedent for the attacks against Muslims in southern Nigeria. Okay, so continuing effects of diversity. There were a lot of effects of diversity during the presidential election this year. The success fairly of democracy, rule of law, and ethnic and religious reconciliation in Nigeria is a bellwether for the entire continent. The electoral violence in Nigeria considered the potential for widespread violence associated with Nigeria's 2011 elections. This assessment remains relevant today. The 2015 elections, again, may precipitate violence that could destabilize Nigeria. Tension, although, is higher, largely how to respond to the racial Islamist insurgent group Boko Haram. Goodluck Jonathan ran for re-election in 2011, thereby violating the system of power alteration. Jonathan's victory in the north made accusations of election rigging. Rioting broke out across the north. The government's inability to defeat Boko Haram, the economic hardships brought on by falling oil prices, and a growing public perception that the Jonathan administration is weak have fueled support for the APC. The APC's voter base enjoys support all over the country. An unstable Nigeria could potentially destabilize neighboring states and compromise U.S. interests in Africa.
We know that Nigeria is a rentier state. How do you think Nigeria is today in the aspect that helps the country pursue its structural adjustments?
It's very difficult to answer that question, but I'm going to answer it in the, as if I am a decision maker.
Okay.
If I'm a decision maker, I say that we should be looking at the period of bumper harvest to safeguard against those periods that we wouldn't have bumper harvest. When the economy is going well, Nigeria come up with these grandiose ways of spending the money. One time we had so much money, surplus money. What did we do? We created a way to spend the money called First Black and African Festival of Art, Arab Emirate. They could have shared that money and
benefited the country.
Yeah, but they are using it to develop their own place.
Yeah.
So if we do the same thing, we have surplus money, we put some money down for bad time, and things will, if the oil doesn't sell well, we get back money from our reserves and keep things at a level that is comfortable for everybody.
How do you suppose, because of the power struggle between the North and South, that the effects of the diversity between them can ever be resolved?
Okay, so to close that gap, the government in the middle. This might sound very liberal to Americans, but I am going to give an example as to why what I'm saying is the best thing that will happen and should happen in developing countries. What I am advocating it for is a system of strong central government.
Okay, since Mend has knocked out a third of the oil production, how do you think it affected the economy today?
So that's a thing of the past, because when they did that, the oil production went down. But the government settled with them, and the oil production has been going well. The problem they have is the oil market that has gone south.